Good afternoon. The challenge of presenting in a conference where everybody is talking about the same thing is by the time you are reaching the end of the day, you really think whatever I'm going to say, everybody knows. So that is where the challenge is. How do you hold the audience and how do you tell them something which they don't feel bored about? So we actually in this study, and this was a IGPC-IIMA Ahmedabad funded research, we actually wanted to explore from the qualitative aspect at the consumer retail level. So we are not talking about buying gold as a sovereign bond. We are not talking about buying gold as a biscuit from the bank. We are talking about buying gold at the jewelry retail shop and trying to map the changes which have come in. Because in the morning we have heard about young generation not being interested in gold, old generation not knowing what to do with gold. So some of these questions we have actually addressed here and maybe we have dug deep. So before we begin, this is where the question comes in. And even before we knew what a gold jewelry is or what a gold coin is, we have been told stories about gold, pirate gold, gold which is protected by serpents, which is protected by dragons. And that actually created a perception of gold as a thing in our mind. And obviously our media was always there, because people of my generation can also talk about this movie where, this was all about finding out lost gold. But with times, if we look into, we have actually improvised. We have come up with gold jewelry which is beyond gold. We have come up with gold jewelry which is workwear gold. And we have still stuck to the tradition of gold, which in one era was to be actually held as bricks or bars. Now, if we look into the Indian scenario, and I will not repeat what we have been discussing, but I will repeat certain important things which have not been discussed. Statistically, it has been found out that returns on gold are as much high as the Sensex, which actually still means that gold is a good product as an investment. On the other side, and along with that, while market moves, if you look into these types of earrings, these are the traditional temple jewelry or the polki, which used to be very regionally preferred jewelry. They are becoming universal. There is nothing called a South Indian or a North Indian jewelry these days. There is nothing called a temple jewelry for a particular state these days. And given the country, we are actually having a huge demand of gold in the jewelry level. Now, in that background, research has observed there are majorly three types of gold buying behavior stereotypes, and at the consumer level, where in one we consider gold as a commodity and something which can be traded, and that is where comes the concepts of gold as a bond. Then gold as an investment, and that can be in the form of jewelry or in the form of gold coins or gold bars. And then gold as a celebration. Now, the celebration can be at the family level, can also be at the personal level. So it can be both at the individual or group level. However, in research, there is, even though these are there, the work which has been done either has been at the industry level, so which is descriptive, or very focused on a particular buying behavior. So there is no comprehensive model of gold buying behavior in a developing nation concept. And developing nations, as you looked into the chart also, are actually contributing to gold consumption at the retail level in the present era. So these are the questions which we started with. What motivates consumers to buy gold? Is it just investment, or are there things beyond that? And do these motivations change across consumer groups and across time? How do these then influence the buying process? That is, what we buy, how we buy, where we buy, and what do we do after we buy? So why we wanted to go into this? We wanted to offer a qualitative approach, because in this case, a survey won't work because we don't even know the right questions. Maybe we'll miss out points which we have not even asked. So we went for an exploratory design. We had focus groups and depth interviews as the major research method technique. We conducted these focus groups and interviews in 4 different states. We selected 2 from Eastern India, 2 from Western India. Deliberately, we kept out South because South anyway is a huge consumer of gold. It's the leading consumer. So we wanted to actually look into balanced markets. And the screening criteria was only simple thing that you have to have a purchase of gold in the last 6 months. And it can be an any form at the retail level. And you need to have independent purchasing power, because some of our questions that what happens after you purchase or what you do with it, it's not relevant if you are not buying it. It becomes very different if you are receiving it as a heirloom or receiving it as a gift. Each FDD had around 8 to 10 participants. So we had 81 respondents in the age group of 25 to 60, rural, urban, different socioeconomic groups, different age categories. And once we had the data, we used the principles of grounded theory. So we took the entire transcripts and we started reading it. Once we started reading it, we actually started finding out words and patterns there. And once the words and patterns emerged, we tried to club them into categories to make meaning or make sense. Once those categories were done, we tried to link them to create that process which I was talking about, the buying behavior process. So as a sample code, I'm talking about the theme of motivation. And what did we start with? We started from here. So we have these open codes. Some people are saying that gold value never goes down. Gold is a reliable investment. It's a common practice to buy gold in marriage. I have to put it in locker. What's the use? That's what actually was one of the point. How do you actually bring gold out of the locker? I feel I can buy gold today. I can exchange it to buy something else. So we started with the right-hand side and my left, your right. And we actually then looked into which phrases, which words are looking to be part of the same category. Once we had that, we started naming the categories. So the motivation dimension came later on. So and we found out that there are fairly 5 major motivations which are driving the consumption or buying pattern of gold at the retail level. Investment as a motive, social norm as a motive. Not necessarily I'm thinking about investment, but I'm saying that, well, this is something which I can make a statement. मेरी बेटी की शादी में ये अगर दूंगा तो मेरे संबंधिया समझेंगे कि मेरा औकात है. As simple as that. Or, and this is the middle point, the self-enhancement is actually what came out from the youngsters and the urban professionals, and not necessarily men, women, they were men also. The points like, I mean, I would rather buy something that I can use every day. Why would I buy a necklace where I can use once a year? People will not even know that I have something. Then there were also issues of exchange. And this is where coming to the point which was discussed in morning, that 35% go exchange. Even though in our study we found out that people purchased with a motive of exchange, but most of the time it did not really result in an exchange. That people said that yes, we thought we'll do that, but we didn't. It's still lying with me. And then finally hoarding. That, well, I am doing it because I'll pass it on to my next generation. I really don't have any motive of selling it or exchanging it or trying to trade it for something else, but I'm just assuming that it will be worth keeping, and that's why I'm buying it. So like this, we actually came up with different themes, and we actually looked into motivations which varied from social requirement. We actually looked into motivations to vary across social strata, and that also influenced the quality of gold which was purchased. The youngsters actually said that I would like work-wear jewelry, and I don't mind impure quality gold. 18 karat is good enough for me. I would rather pay less. I would buy a lightweight jewelry which I can use every day, or I can keep on reusing. I will buy something for my Januaries, I'll something buy for my Februaries, and I don't really spend a lot on that. And obviously, the point which was discussed as, and one of the points was SIP. Now and this is not just necessarily the new age consumers. Some of the middle age consumers also said that, see, markets are very developed now. एक ज़माना था जब एक ही ज़मीन और गोल्ड ही थे. I don't really need to bother now because I have a financial advisor. I know he tells me where to invest, and I get much more returns, and it's much more liquid. And I can control it much better than gold. So it is not necessarily that it's still considered an investment by a lot of people. So this is what is the final thing which we came up with. So if you look into, the environment is something which is the predominant precursor to even the motivations. Because we have alternative investment options, we actually have different motivations to buy or not to buy gold. Obviously, the traditional ones are there, like occasion, like economic situation, and like peer pressure. In certain cases, people say that, well, because everybody is doing it, I thought, obviously, I don't want to be that so-called word which is used, this is FOMO. I'm doing, even though some of those people didn't use that word, they are elderly, but say everybody is doing it. But this motivation, actually, the environment is influencing, but it is influenced by the psychodemographics. Just because somebody is doing it, I mean, see, I'm educated, I can calculate my returns, I know what is an SIP, I know how a mutual fund works. So even if you're doing it, I need not bother. Obviously, the motivations I talked about. And when it comes to purchase, we actually found out that there are some categories. You purchase for self with a motive of consuming now. And you purchase for self with a motivation of consuming in future. This automatically will have an influence on the weight, the quality, and the type. And obviously the ticket size. The same thing happens for buy for others now and buy for others in future. And interestingly, there is another interesting thing which comes here. Whenever it comes for buy for others, it depends on who is the other. That will also influence the ticket size, the type of gold, and the quality. Because when it is like a family marriage and I'm giving it to somebody who is direct family, I'm really thinking of a bigger staff, higher ticket, and purer quality. Because I know that my reputation is linked to that. And then at times, because that is where the peer pressure and the FOMO comes up, I'm buying just because others are buying. It's not for present consumption, immediate, not for future consumption. I'm just buying it for hoarding. Now, how is it panning out? Now, in post-purchase situations, we can have perceptions or attitudes, we can have behavior. So some of the attitudes which are coming are delight, on the other hand, regret. In fact, if you look into the example which was given in senior citizens, that mujhe laga tha kabhi use hoga. But I am now sitting with it in my locker. I cannot keep it in my home because I'm having a fear of robbery. And I do not really know what to do with it. And yes, I talked to the local jeweler. This fellow was telling me the price which I cannot agree to. Then you have a reconciliation. That where you say that, okay, let me try to find out a way. And which is like I am trying to convince my mind that I have done something right. Finally, expectations. That, well, some people are saying that, no, I still expect that I have not done a bad job. And even though I'm not delighted, I'm not regretting. I know that in future something will happen good. So how is it influencing behavior then? Well, if you are buying for self now and you are buying with a motive of self-enhancement, you are consuming immediately. If you are buying with a future exchange value or a social norm and buy for self future or buy for others future, you are consuming occasionally. In certain cases, you are just hoarding. And in certain cases, you are passing over to generations. That, okay, mere baad isko milega, ya main usko de diya. I know that he or she won't use it, but I said that mere jeete ji aap le lo. As simple as that. So now, if we look into the theoretical implications, this is one of the studies which is illuminating the psycho-behavioral process. So we are not looking at macro, we are looking at the micro level, consumer level psycho-behavioral process of gold buying. And it contradicts the traditional view of gold as luxury, because a good amount of people say that gold can be day-to-day consumption also. So it's no longer conspicuous consumption. आज मेरे पास माँ है, तुम्हारे पास क्या है? या तो गाड़ी है, तुम्हारे पास क्या है? तो people say नहीं, मेरे पास माँ है. माँ is good enough. So it also supports the tripartite model of gold buying, because yes, we still found out that these are some of the important motives people will buy, but it also influences the notion that gold can have multiple realities. There is no single reality of gold. And that brings us to one of the questions, in the questions which was asked in the morning, that maybe we need a new campaign which creates a new image of gold. That this is gold, and this is gold for somebody, this is gold for somebody else. That may actually influence the behavior and solve out certain problems which we are discussing, like the problem of people not exchanging, the problem of people not looking into certain product categories in certain way. Obviously, you should favor both orientations and multiple segments so that you cater to the needs which are changing. Because till now, the marketing is done at the brand level. It is not like if you look into like what DTC did, diamonds are forever. It was like a brainwashing campaign to tell people this is what a diamond is. And obviously, think of integrating gold in products beyond jewelry, which can be purchased at the retail level. So with that, I'm through. Keep shining. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. It was very, very interesting. In fact, what you mentioned beyond jewelry is something we have been discussing also, throwing as an idea. Like health products and safety products today are actually there. If you want an app, you want a health watch, etc. Jewelry is something we want to wear, but they are not integrated with health or safety. It's very strange, and no one has innovated to say, okay, I'll bring you a watch which is made of jewel. I mean, I'm just using. I'll give you something, a jewelry piece which can be used for health also. So I think it's a very interesting presentation. I hope it'll be put up in the website, right? I think it's has tremendous insights. Like the previous one, it is absurd. But again, previous one is more ESG and how they should treat it. Why we should not buy from people who don't treat the workers well. Absolutely that will become important. This is truly something which we can work. Thank you very much. And we'll take some questions as soon as the next two